You can start, madam.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, students. I'm Professor Dipali Shrikhande. I'll be taking a pre-placement training session on Agile models today. In previous session, we have seen the SDLC models, that is Software Development Lifecycle Model. And today we are going to see the Agile models. So what do you mean by the Agile methodology first? We'll check out what is Agile methodology, we'll check out Agile principles, and then we'll check out the different Agile models, their specifications and their details in this session. So we'll start with the Agile methodology. What do you mean by the word Agile basically? Agile is basically ability to move quickly and easily and responding swiftly to the changes. In traditional software development methodologies like a waterfall model, a project can take several months or years to complete the customer and not to get to see the end product until the completion of a project. That means till the time my whole project is completed, a customer cannot view what is actually going on in a project. But in contrast to this, agile projects have a sprints or iterations, which are shorter in duration, like from 2 weeks to 2 months. So minimum 2 week sprint to maximum 2 months sprint, during which a predefined features are developed and delivered. So that is basically customer can see what is my project is, some features of my project on a quickly basis. That is in the month of duration of 2 months, I can get to see the what is my project is all about, right? So some features are visible to the customer. So that is basically the benefit of agile methodology. So what happens over here? We have the different ideas. Ideas are nothing but my requirements, right? We define those ideas, we code those ideas, we test, and we review and address those ideas. That is nothing but we give those ideas to customer for the feedback. So that is my iteration 1. Based on a iteration 1 feedback, I redefine the idea, I recode it, test it, and again release one of the increment. Based on a feature, again I redefine. This process goes on till the time my final software product comes in the market. So at each and every iteration, I have some set of features at my hand so that I can have a feedback on those features. So if customer says that no, you can add these many things in the next iteration, or these many things can be added, or these things are not required, then I can easily add or delete those changes in the software, which is not possible in case of traditional software development, that is SDLC. Okay, so this is basically the agile method. In the agile methodology, each project is broken into the several iterations. All the iterations should be same time duration between 2 to 8 weeks, that is 2 weeks to 2 months. At the end of each iteration, a working product should be delivered to the customer. In simple terms, the agile approach for the project will be broken up into n releases, assuming that each iteration is set to last for 4 weeks. Rather than spending 1.5 months on a requirement gathering in traditional methods, in agile development, the team will decide the basic core features that are required for the product and decide of which features to be developed in a first iteration. So that means if suppose I'm using a traditional method, that is suppose a waterfall model or any other SDLC model, I'll take almost 1.5 months for a requirement gathering. But in case of agile methods, I get some basic features on my hand. A customer can see a product with that basic features in those 1.5 months, right? So that is the main advantage of agile development. Any remaining features that cannot be delivered in a first iteration will be broken up into the next iteration and subsequent iterations based on the priority. At the end of first iteration, the team will deliver a working software with the features that were finalized for the iteration. There will be n number of iteration at the end of each iteration, and the customer is delivered a working software that is incrementally enhanced and updated with the features that were shortlisted for the iterations. Okay. Let's see what happens with the traditional software development and agile software development. So basically, this is suppose a timeline that is from a Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, right? In the month of suppose Jan and Feb, I have the requirement gathering phase. Then Feb and March, I have the design phase. In April, May, June, July, August, I have the coding phase, right? So till the time I get to see my product, it's almost been 12 months. I'm just working on a product and I do not have any product in my hand to see how that product looks like. So if that any changes, then it is difficult to add or delete those changes. But in case of agile software development, you can check over here. In the month of Jan, I have suppose selected 10 features to be shortlisted to be have in a one sprint, right? So we collect the requirements for that features, we analyze, we design, we code, we test, we get the user acceptance, that is user feedback, and based on a feedback, I'll continue my next iteration. So within a short span of time, I can get to see how my product is look alike, right? The next part, just a second. We'll see next, that is agile methodology and waterfall model difference. What is basically the difference between these two, that is agile methodology and traditional waterfall model? Agile methodology follows the incremental approach, whereas waterfall model follows the sequential design process. Agile methodologies divides the project development lifecycle into different sprints. What is sprint? We are going to see in the Scrum model. That in that model, you will able to recognize what the sprint is in actual manner. And in waterfall, the project development process is divided into distinct phases. Agile methodology is flexible methodology, whereas waterfall is a structured software development methodology. Agile is a collection of many different projects and it is completed as a one single project in case of waterfall. The test plan is reviewed after each and every sprint, but in waterfall model, test plan is reviewed after complete development. Testing team can take part in requirements and change phase without any problems. And in case of waterfall, it is difficult to test the initial changes if there are any need, right? So this is basically the difference between agile methodology and software development methodology. Okay. The next is Agile Principles. Okay. We are going to see the 12 principles. First is to satisfy the customer. The highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of a valuable software. So satisfaction, customer satisfaction is the highest priority, and that is a first agile principle. If the customer is properly satisfied, there won't be any changes. If customer is not satisfied, there can be a scope for a changes so that we can work on that changes. The second thing is welcome the change. As soon as if the customer is not satisfied, there can be the changes in the product, right? Welcoming the changing requirements, even late in the development, the agile process harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. That is, whatever the changes that customer has given, we incorporate those changes. Deliver frequently. Deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to the couple of months with the preference to the shorter time scale. We have seen the difference previously, right? In a month or a 2 month, we get to know how my product is lookalike, right? So in a sprint one, I get one iteration, one part of my product ready. In sprint two, I get updates on part one, and second part of my product is ready, and so on. So in a timeline, I get a quickly get the difference, that is what my software look like, right? The next is work together. A business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project, so that if there are any confusions, any clarifications to be done, then those can be checked. The next is trust and support. Build the projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support their needs. And they must get to the job done. So that is my next principle. Next is face-to-face conversation. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is a face-to-face conversation. The next is working software. Working software is a primary measure of a progress. The agile next is sustainable development. Sustainable development means agile processes promotes the sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and a user should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So that is, in every iteration, I can have a proper estimate so that there won't be any lag or there won't be any extra budget required. Continuous attention. Continuous attention to the technical excellence and a good design enhances the agility. The next principle is maintain simplicity. That is, keep it simple, stupid. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. That is, simplify the things and keep it simple principle used in all the agile models. Self-organizing teams. The best architectures, requirements, and design emerge from the self-organizing teams. Reflect and adjust. At regular interval, team reflects on how to become more effective and then tune and adjust its behavior accordingly. So that is my 12th features for agile development. Okay, so we have seen total 12 principles, that is satisfy the customer, welcome the change, deliver frequently, work together, trust and support, face-to-face conversation, working software, sustainable development, continuous attention, maintain simplicity, self-organizing team, reflect and adjust. So those are the 12 agile principles. Then we are going to start with the agile models. The first agile model is extreme programming. What happens in extreme programming? So originally this is proposed by the Kanban. XP programming uses the object-oriented approach. XP encompasses a set of rules and practices that occurs within the context of a four framework activities, that is planning, designing, coding, and testing. So what happens exactly in all those things we are going to see in detail. So this is basically my XP framework lookalike. Let's start with the first thing, that is plan. What happens exactly in plan? It begins with the creation of set of stories called as user stories that describes required features and functionality for the software development. So whatever requirements that are there are now here stored in the form of user stories. Each story is written by the customer and is placed on an index card. A customer assigns a value, that is priority, to the story based on the overall business value of the feature or a function. Then the agile team assesses each story and assigns a cost. If a story is estimated to require more than 3 development weeks, the customer is asked to split the story in smaller stories and the assignment value and cost reoccurs again. It is important to note that new stories can be written anytime and can be added anytime. Stories are grouped together for a deliverable increment. A commitment is made on a delivery date based on how many stories we are going to see in first increment, right? So we work here in a deliverable increment. After the first increment, project velocity is calculated, which is nothing but to define a subsequent delivery date for a other increments. A project velocity is a number of customer user stories implemented during the first release. So if you see here in a diagram, what happens is there are user stories that assigns a value, that assigns a test criteria, and then iteration plan. So suppose in a first release, I have taken the 20 user stories, right? So my project velocity calculated for that 20 user story. So for those 20 user stories, I'll check and estimate all the things. Based on that, I can tell that after these many days, my first release will come. And after that, the second release will start. Okay. So the number of user stories are important in the part of XP. The next is XP design. XP follows the keep it simple principle. That is nothing but a simple design is always preferred over the more complex representations. It encourages the use of CRC cards. CRC cards are nothing but to identify and organize the object-oriented classes that are relevant to the current software increment. For a difficult design, it suggests the creation of spike solution. Spike solution is nothing but a design prototype. If a difficult design problem encounters, then the XP recommends the immediate creation of an operational prototype of the portion of the design called as spike solution. Then it is coding. It recommends the construction of unit test for a story. A key concept during the coding activity is called as pair programming. That is a main feature of a XP coding. XP recommends that two people work together at a one computer station to create a code for a story that is assigned to them. This provides mechanism for real-time problem solving when two people are often better than one, and in real-time quality assurance. Another feature that XP coding has is a refactoring. XP encourages refactoring. It is an iterative refinement of an internal program design. Refactoring is a process of changing software system in such a way that it does not alter the external behavior of a code, yet improves the internal structure. So it works on basically the data structure. In XP testing, all the unit tests are executed daily. The unit tests that are created should be implemented using a framework that enables them to be automated. Acceptance tests are defined by the customer and implemented to assess the visible functionalities. Acceptance tests are derived from the user stories that have been implemented as a part of software release. So that is nothing but my XP model. So I'll quickly go to the diagram and we'll check out how these things have been done. So we have started with the planning. We have seen that there are user stories based on which the values are assigned and project velocity is calculated at the end of first plan. Okay, at the first release. So if suppose in a planning, I have decided to keep the 20 user stories. Okay, on those 20 user stories, I'll keep the design and I'll use the CRC cards. If there are some difficult problems over there in design, then I'll produce a spike solution. That is nothing but a design prototype. On that 20 user stories, I'll do the pair programming. Pair programming is nothing but two persons work together on a one story to code that part of a feature. Okay. Then there is a refactoring. Refactoring is nothing but improving the internal behavior without changing its external behavior. All the coding that has been there, all the user stories that have been coded are unit tested daily. And there is a continuous integration going on till the time a product is ready for the first release. Okay, so this is nothing but my first agile model, that is extreme programming. Okay, if you have any questions, you can type it in a chat box. We'll take it towards the end of the session. Okay, so we'll quickly move to the next model of the agile model. Okay, next model is Scrum model, which is a very popular model in agile model, which is currently many industry uses this model in combination with another models. Okay, Scrum principles are consistent with the agile platform and are used to guide the development activities within a process that incorporates the following framework activities, that is requirement analysis, design, evaluation, and delivery. Just a second. Just a second. Okay. We'll start with the Scrum. What happens in Scrum basically? There is a product owner who gets the inputs from the end users, customers, teams, and other stakeholders. So if you can see here, the input has been taken from the end users, customer, and stakeholders. Those inputs are received by the product owner. Product owner makes it as a feature list. So if suppose there are 20 requirements or 20 set of user stories that are there as an input, then those are added to the product backlog. Product backlog is nothing but the feature list. Based on a different features, a team has been selected. The team selects how much to commit to do in a sprint end. Okay, so with the help of a team, suppose there are 5 members in a team, those 5 members plan that suppose we are going to deliver only 10 features in a first sprint. So that sprint planning meeting will be conducted. Okay, after that there are tasks are defined with the help of sprint backlog. So on those 10 features, a sprint backlog has been calculated. In a sprint, sprint is basically a 1 to 4 week time period. So at the end of 4 weeks, I should have a potentially deliverable software that can be presented in front of the customer or a end user. So each and every screen that has a Scrum Master. So Scrum, what is a Scrum Master basically? He take care of the sprint. So what happens in sprint? So there are basically different meetings and different things goes on in a sprint. There is a product backlog refinement. In sprint, there are daily Scrum meetings happen that will help to understand if there are any difficulties. We are going to see this in detail. After a 4 week of time period, a review has been conducted. After a review, the potentially shippable product, or you can say a first refinement of a product, has been given to the customer. After showing it to the customer, a feedback has been taken. If there are any changes to be done, those are added to the product backlog, and this process goes on till the time my final product is ready. There are no changes in duration or a goal in a sprint that is allowed. So if suppose customer says that I don't need this feature, then that changing that feature is a part of basically a Scrum Master's decision. Okay, we'll start with each and every thing in detail for the Scrum. Within the each framework activity, work task occurs within the process pattern called as sprint. Scrum emphasizes the use of set of software process patterns that have proven effective for the project with the tight timeline, changing requirements and business criticality. Each of this process pattern define a set of development actions. A backlog. What do you mean by backlog? A backlog is a product prioritized list of a project requirements or a features that provides a business value for the customer. Items can be added to the backlog anytime during the project life cycle. Okay. The product manager assesses the backlog and updates the priority as per the requirements. What do you mean by sprint? A sprint consists of work units that are required to achieve a requirement defined in a backlog that must fit into the predefined time box, that is typically 30 days. Changes are not introduced during the sprint, but yes, changes can be added in a backlog, and from those backlog, the changes can be taken up into the next sprint. Hence, the sprint allows team members to work in a short-term but a stable environment. Scrum meetings. Scrum meetings are basically the short meetings that are held daily by the Scrum team. In these meetings, there are 3 key questions asked and answered by all the team members. That is, what did you do since your last meeting? That is, last meeting till now, what is the work done by you in the project? What are the difficulties that you are encountering? Is there are any difficulties that you are encountering for the project? And third is, what is your plan to accomplish by the next meeting? So from the last meeting till now, what you have done, is there are any difficulties, and what is your plan to complete by the next team meeting, that is by tomorrow? Okay, so these questions are answered by all the team members. If there are any difficulties, those are solved by the Scrum Master. A team leader is called as Scrum Master that leads the meeting and assesses the responses from the each person. Scrum meeting helps the team to uncover the potential problems as early as possible. Also, these meetings, daily meetings, lead to the knowledge socialization, thereby promotes a self-organizing team structure, which is a agile feature, agile principle. Demos. Deliver the software increment to the customer so that functionality that has been implemented can be demonstrated and evaluated by the customer. It is important to note that the demo may not contain all the planned functionalities, but rather those functions that can be delivered within the time box that was established. Scrum process patterns enables a software team to work successfully in a world where the elimination of uncertainty is impossible. So if you want to just remember the Scrum in a short diagram, then here is a diagram. There is a product backlog in which there are multiple features. From those features, a sprint has been taken up, that is, a selected features are taken up for the sprint, based on which the sprint meetings are held, which are 24 hours meetings, that is daily meetings. Those happen for 2 to 4 weeks, that is for minimum 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Within a 1 month of a time period, I get to see a demo of my project. So this is basically my Scrum. I hope the Scrum model is clear to you all. If you have any questions, you can type it in a chat box or so that we can take it towards the end of the session. Okay, just give me a moment. The next model is ASD, that is Adaptive Software Development Model. Adaptive Software Development Model is a method to build the complex software and a system. ASD focuses on a human collaboration and self-organization. It has three main features or phases, namely speculation, collaboration, and learning. So we are going to see what happens in each and every phase. Speculation. During this phase, a project is initiated and planning has been conducted. The project plan uses the project initiation information like the project requirements, user needs, a customer mission statement, etc. to define the release cycles for that project. Based on the information obtained at the completion of a first cycle, the plan is reviewed and adjusted so that the plan work best fitted in a reality which the ASD team is working. Collaboration. It is a difficult part of ASD as it needs the workers to be motivated. It collaborates the communication and teamwork, but emphasizes individualism, as an individual creativity plays a major role in creative thinking. People working together must trust each other to criticize the work, to criticize without animosity, assist without resentment, work as hard as possible, possession of a skill set, communicate problems to find the effective solution. Next step is learning. The workers may have the overestimate of their own understanding of the technology, which may not lead to the desired results. Learning helps the customer or the workers to increase their level of understanding over the project. The ASD team learns in three ways. That is, first is focus group, where each and every learning happens on a client feedback. Next is formal technical reviews. A technical review of a software components has been taken up on a periodic basis, and those reviews will help to know that how much learning has been done. And the next is project postmortems. That improves the quality development. So this is basically my ASD model. The ASD model, that is adaptive software development, overall emphasis is on dynamics of a self-organizing teams, interpersonal collaboration, and individual and team learning yields the software project team that have the much higher likelihood of a success. So this is basically the ASD model. Okay. So if you see over here, the speculation is nothing but a requirement gathering and analysis phase, where a mission statement, project statements, project constraints, basic requirements are gathered together, and those are planned for a time box release. Then in collaboration, requirement gathering has been collaborated. This is basically the most difficult space. Okay. And in learning, the different focus groups used for the feedbacks, formal technical reviews, postmortems happens on the selected release. And then the software has been released for the as a first release. And then the subsequent phases happens. Okay. So this is basically just like the XP model. The release is nothing but a software increment that has been adjusted for the subsequent cycle. So based on changes that have been suggested by the customer, again the speculation, collaboration, and learning happens. Okay. So by the time we have seen XP model, we have seen Scrum model, and we have seen ASD model. The next model is FDD, that is feature driven development. The FDD stands for feature driven development. It is an agile, iterative, and incremental model. So basically, iterative and incremental. I hope you remember the difference between iterative and incremental that we have seen in the last lecture. Okay. It is an iterative and incremental model that focuses on progressing the features of a developing software. The main motive of a feature-driven development is to provide timely, updated, and working software to the client. In FDD, reporting and progress tracking is necessary at all the levels. So here the main focus is on the features of that software. So this is basically my FDD model localized, where we develop an overall model, we build the feature list, then we plan by the features, and then based on those plans, we design by the feature and build by the feature. Okay. So this is basically my feature-driven development model. We are going to see what happens in each and every step in detail. Develop an overall model. Building a mainly structural model of the problem domain is called as a object model. So different objects are identified based on the features, and an object model will be created. Build a feature list. Identifying the required functionality of the system and express it as a feature or a feature set. So based on an object model, features are identified. Planned by the feature. Scheduling the features for the development and assigning the feature sets and classes, and in assigning the feature sets and the classes in an object model to the developers. So this is nothing but the plan by the feature. Designing by the feature. Based on a planning, determining how the features should be recognized at a runtime by the interaction among the different objects. So designing takes place on the features that have been planned. Built by the feature. Coding and unit testing are necessary items for understanding these features. So building is nothing but my coding and testing phase. Implemented items are then promoted to the main build. What are the characteristics of FDD? Short iterative. FDD lifecycle works in a simple and short iterations to effectively finish the work on time and gives the good pace for the large projects. Second is focused customer. The agile practice is totally based on an inspection of each feature by the client and then pushed to the main build code. A structured and a feature focus. Initial activities in a life cycle builds the domain model and a feature list in the beginning of a timeline, and more than 70% of efforts are given to the last two activities. Next is frequent releases. Feature-driven development provides a continuous release of features in a software and retaining the continuous success on the project. What are the advantages of feature-driven development? So, reporting at all the levels lead to the easier progress tracking. FDD provides continuous success for larger size of teams and projects. Reduction in risk is observed as a whole model and design is built in a smaller segments. FDD provides the greater accuracy and in the cost estimation of the project due to feature segmentation. What are the disadvantages? The agile practice is not good for the smaller project because the smaller project may not have those many features available. So the feature, if there are less features, then it is not a good. Then we can go with the traditional software models, that is SDLC models. There is high dependency on lead programmers, designers, and mentors because we are working on a features. So there are high responsibility and dependency on these stakeholders. There is a lack of documentation which can create an issue afterwards because we are focusing on features. So documentation part may lack. So this was the next model, that is feature-driven development. The next model is dynamic system development technique. Okay, so the dynamic system development technique is an associate degree agile code development approach that provides a framework for building and maintaining the system. The DSM philosophy is borrowed from a modified version of a sociologist principle. That is, 80% of an application is offered delivered in a 20% of a time it has desired to deliver the entire application. So the DSM is an iterative method within which every iteration follows the 80% rule, that simply enough work is needed for every increment to facilitate the movement for the following increment. That is nothing but after completion of, suppose this is my whole project is, okay, and the whole project is divided into 4 parts. as soon as my first parts, 80% part has been completed. Okay, 80% part has been completed for the first module. Then I can start with the another module. Till the time my another module is in working, the 20% part can be completed. So this is basically the main motto behind the dynamic system development model. Okay. The remaining details is often completed later once business necessities are noted and changes that requested are done and accommodated in the system. What happens in the DSM? There are basically 5 parts. The first is feasibility study. It establishes the essential business necessities and constraints related to the applying to be designed, then assesses whether or not the application could be viable candidate for the DSM method. So that is nothing but whatever project we have chosen are feasible or not are checked during the feasibility study, business study. It establishes the use and knowledge necessities that may permit the applying to supply the business values. Additionally, it is an essential application design and identifies the maintainability and necessity for the apply. So we check the what the business surrounding is and what the business study is. The functional model iteration. It provides a collection of progressive prototypes that demonstrates the practicality for the client. Design and build the iteration. It revisits the prototype design throughout the useful model iterations to make sure that everyone has been designed in a manner that may alter it to supply the operational business price for the finished users. In some cases, useful model iterations and style and build iteration occur at the same time. Last is implementation. It places the newest core increment, that is operationalized prototype, into the operational surrounding. It thought to be noted as the increment might not be 100% completed or changes are also requested because the increment is placed into a place, and either in case the DSM development works continue by returning to the useful model iteration activity. It's a rare cases where the project uses a DSM methodology, but in some cases DSM methodology is combined with the XP model and is used as a solution for the project. There are different DSM principles. First is to focus on a business need. Business need is nothing but what my business plan is. Understand the business priorities, develop the valid business case, and ensures the continuous business commitment is the first DSM principle. Second is deliver on time. Use the time boxing technique, focus on the business priorities, predict the deliveries, and always hit the deadlines. The third principle is cooperate and collaborate. Involve stakeholders at right time. Develop a one team culture. Involve the business representatives so that we can have the collaboration at one place. The fourth principle is never compromise the quality. The agile quality level at the agree on a quality level at the start. Ensure quality isn't a variable. Design, document, and test. Testing helps to improve the quality so that all the errors can be uncovered and quality can be met. The next principle is build increment. Deliver business benefit early whenever it's possible. Release reassess the priorities with each increment. Continuously confirm that work is correct. So that is nothing but incremental builds will help us to improve the quality. The next is develop iteratively. What happens in this? Develop using your customer feedback. Create enough design upfront. Experiment, evolve, and be creative. Communicate continuously. Manage stakeholders' expectations. Keep documentation simple and timely. Interact through the facilitated workshop. So communication will help me to understand what the customer is. So continuous communication will help me to understand what the what are the stakeholders' expectations. Demonstrate control. Be proactive when monitoring the progress. Time box work and reviews regularly. Evaluate continuing the project visibility. So these are my 8 features of DSO. That is focus on a business need, deliver on time, cooperate and collaborate, never compromise on quality, build incrementally, develop iteratively, communicate continuously, and demonstrate the control. So that's it about the agile models. Okay, so we are now going to see what are the different interview questions that can be asked on a agile model. A question may come from the Scrum or a Scrum model at the max, because Scrum is an main model in agile models which has been used in an industry in combination with another model. So a duration of a Scrum print. We have seen this Scrum print duration is basically of 3 to 4 weeks. So not more than 4 weeks. What is the difference between the Scrum model and a XP model? So XP model has a different functionality and Scrum model has a different functionality. So Scrum focuses on a sprint, whereas the XP focuses on a user stories. What do you understand by the agile strategies? So we have seen the agile principles. Those are nothing but the agile strategy. Okay. Then what can be the different principles that will help to understand the agile models? So we have seen all 12 principles. What can be the drawbacks of agile models? If there are any, then you can explain. So you can explain it like it is not easy to predict about how much efforts are required. That can be the disadvantage. Every time it is not properly focused on design and documentation of a project. That can be one of the disadvantage. In case of requirements that clients are not understood properly, then final product will not meet its proper result. Then that can be one of the disadvantage. Still, there are many advantages in the agile methods. Okay. Then a question may come on a Scrum Master, that what can be the role of a Scrum Master, or a situation will be given and will be asked that what can be the role of a Scrum Master and what can be done at this point. The Scrum Master is a leader as well as a coach for the Scrum team. The Scrum Master is responsible to serve and protect the team in any kind of distractions that could affect their performance. So the main role of a Scrum Master is to motivate the team, and if there are any issues during the sprint, then it is a Scrum Master's duty to take a call whether to go ahead or whether to scrap that feature. Okay. What can be the user stories? User stories are nothing but my requirements. Then what are the different models that are there in Agile? So we have seen all the Agile models. What are the skills required for a good Agile testers? So that can be one of the questions asked. A requirement to be familiar with the concepts of and principles of Agile. You should have an excellent communication to communicate with your team, ability to set the priority and the task according to the requirements. You should be able to understand the requirements properly, and finalizing or assessing the risk is main important feature of the agile tester. So these questions can be asked, or you may be asked like what are the difference between the traditional SDLC models and the agile models? Can we combine the any SDLC model along with the agile model? Yes, you can combine based on a projects. The models which are which we have seen, that is SDLC models and agile models, can be combined together. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask me in a chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. Or you can reach me if you have any query. You can reach me at dipali.srikhandi@vit.edu.in. Any questions, Arun sir? Are there any questions?
Not yet, madam.
Okay, we'll wait for 2 minutes and then we can end the session then. As there are no questions, I hope you have understood the topics. So if later on, if you have any questions, you can reach me at dipali.srikhandi@vit.edu.in. I'll be happy to answer them. Happy learning and all the best for your placements. And stop the lecture.
Arun sir, can we end the session?
Yes, sir.